Sonic fans. I don't really need to introduce Sonic. You know the name and you know the game. He's basically spanned across games, comics, movies, TV shows, all sorts of things. Even ice cream trucks. But when something that doesn't really happen officially, then most of the times the fans will. Or they'll do the worst things known to mankind. You know, it's just kind of a toss-up. I could see why people will automatically just assume the worst when someone says Sonic fans. In fact, I had to correct myself multiple times from saying I'm a Sonic fan to saying I'm a fan of Sonic. You know, just a different phrasing of words can do so much, by the way. Because if I say I'm a Sonic fan, then, oh no, guess it's a public lynching for me. And I can kind of understand why there's such a taboo about being a fan of Sonic. But that doesn't mean that you should really overshadow the other works that, you know, the good side of the community has. And before you say anything, yes, there is a good side of the community. So, we're actually going to talk about that today. So how this is going to work is that we're going to start with the good stuff, you know, the actually pretty neat stuff that I bet you didn't even know about. Then we're going to go to the pretty weird stuff. Not outright problematic, but weird enough to be, well, weird. Then we're going to go to the bad stuff, which is probably going to be some of the stuff that you might be a little more familiar with. And then we're going to go to the downright horrendous stuff, which is stuff that I probably can't even show. Yeah, we're going that deep. So, let's start off simple. And thank goodness for this. But before we continue, this video is sponsored by the subscribe button. Wait, you think I have actual sponsors? Pfft, no. If you can, take the time to, you know, do all the buttons. It would be much appreciated. And I don't normally do these kind of videos, so feedback would be appreciated. The Sonic community gets a lot of slack, but that doesn't mean that the other actually talented part of the community shouldn't be undermined. Sonic fans can create some of the greatest stuff that the franchise has even seen, official works included, such as Sonic Robo Blast 2. These developers have some dedication. If you cannot respect that this game was made all the way back in 1988, has great gameplay and well-designed levels, and it has a ton of community mods, custom game modes, full-on kart racers, and a Persona remake, and it's all made off of a modified Doom engine? How is that not commendable? Sonic Robo Blast 2 might be one of the greatest fan games ever. There's a reason why so many people praise it. I do recommend you go check this game out. It is completely free and it is so much fun. Another fairly recent Sonic fan game that is something that people have been talking about a lot recently is something called Sonic Galactic, which also has great momentum, great gameplay. Think of like Sonic Mania, to where they had an account for every single character's playstyle in the levels, and think of that as like 5 characters. That's pretty neat. Then you have games like Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit, which is a recreation of the Game Gear game of the same name. Sonic the Hedgehog Project 06, a remake built from the ground up, and something that makes Sonic 06 actually look like it's a pretty good game. Sonic and the Fallen Star, Sonic Time Twisted, Sonic GT, and countless other well put together fan games. This isn't even mentioning ROM hacks. In fact, there are 2 events each year that showcase ROM hacks and fan games. And fun fact, one of these places is actually where Pizza Tower comes from. I think that if Sonic fan games weren't a thing, then the community would be worse off. Yes, worse off than it is. Because if games like Retro Sonic or ROM hacks like Sonic Mega Mix weren't a thing, then we wouldn't have bangers like Sonic Mania. Let's not forget that Sonic fans have done some pretty influential stuff that has been and will continue to influence Sega and help them get into the right direction after their rough years, let's just say. Also, we cannot forget that the Sonic community may or may not have just made the best way to preserve Xbox 360 games. Better than emulation. Sonic Unleashed Recompiled. This isn't emulation. This is a full-on port of Sonic Unleashed native to PC. The reason why this happened is because fans have been clamoring and yammering for Sega to port the game to PC and modern consoles, and they just didn't do it. So leave it to fans to do the one thing that Sega couldn't do and port the whole thing, which is honestly so cool, because not only does this mean that we have a fully free version of Sonic Unleashed, and by free you need to have your own ROM of the 360 games to have the game work, and it has full-on mod support. which means that the community can do basically whatever it wants. And oh my gosh, I completely forgot about the mods. Some of the mods are crazy. It is the whole reason that Sega decided to leave up OG Generations as a legacy bundle pack in Steam. If it wasn't for that, then we would not have been able to have both versions of Sonic Generations readily available. Now, I actually don't want to talk about some of the mods, because talking about the mods, I'd be here all day, just as much as the fan games. But it's really cool what the fan community has been able to do. I mean, you should also check out some of these artists. See, you think that Sonic art is just about, like, I don't know, fatting people. I honestly don't know. I've never been on DeviantArt, nor do I want to start. Which is something that I actually used to help inspire myself to get even better at drawing. And the last thing that I think about of something that the Sonic community did that was pretty cool is, well, albeit harsh, but criticism of that Sonic design. Now, I know this wasn't like just a Sonic community thing, but it was mostly them. And if it weren't for that, then they probably wouldn't have changed the design. And in fact, if it really wasn't for the fans and vocalizing what they wanted, then we probably wouldn't have 3 amazing movies. It is a shame that some of the Sonic stuff that is focused on isn't really the positive stuff, but I think that is also because a lot of people do like to draw attention to the negative stuff. And the negative stuff is what we're going to be diving into. From now on, we're going downhill. But let's just take a moment to appreciate all the cool stuff that the fan community has done. Thank you for making this franchise way past cool. Now let's get on to... Sonic fans have a reputation for, well, a lot of stuff. But one of those things is OCs. Now, with the utmost respect, I think OCs are really weird, and I never really liked them. Now, admittedly, some OCs can be cool. The aforementioned Sonic Galactic introduces their own new and original character, Tunnel the Mole. The reason Tunnel the Mole works really well is because his design also messes really well with the pre-existing character. But a lot of the time, that doesn't really happen. I know most of these are made by children, and I bet half of these are made with MS Paint. What I'm saying is that you don't need to make Sonic, but he's blue. Yo, I'm actually stupid. I'm actually so stupid. Okay, what I'm trying to say is make them unique at the very least. And while we're on the topic of OCs, I feel like I need to mention this bloody pincushion right here. Sonic.exe is probably one of the most interesting and, albeit, probably one of the worst creepypastas. I'm not really going to talk about the story itself because, I want to make a creepypasta video eventually, and I want to save this for that. But just so you know, the story is absolute cheeks. And not only that, the person who made it is an absolute creep. But I think it's really weird that the subsection of the community kind of latched onto this thing. But why is this something that still exists in big 2025? Now, I won't lie, there's some pretty cool ones. But there's a lot of them that just bolt down to, Ted was working at Sega, and one day he came across a haunted copy of Sonic Shuffle. And then out came Sonic MP4, and he trapped Ted in the game with him. From now on, Ted will be known as Tails.jpg. That's basically how most of them boil down to. Now, to be honest, this isn't really something exclusive to Sonic. This is a creepypasta thing in general, but this is kind of something that happens a lot when people are making new EXEs. And yes, people are making spin-offs of this guy. But most times, 9 times out of 10, it's the design that carries and not the actual character itself. Okay, shipping. There's like kind of a fine line to shipping. You know, it's kind of like the do's and the don'ts. To be honest, I'm not really that big on this stuff. This is just kind of like an outsider looking in. But I do find it weird that it's Sonic characters. These are technically kids. And I don't really understand what's the obsession with it. If it's like the cure to cancer or anything like that. I just don't get it. And what's also really weird is that people get so heated when you have a different opinion. I get it. It's the internet. People have different opinions. And as long as it's not dangerous, then your opinion is valid. But, it really shouldn't be this deep, right? I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I kinda think shipping kids is a little strange, okay? But, they're not doing anything bad, right? Right? I'm sure you've heard of revisionist history before. If not, it's a term that describes that over time, opinions and narratives around stuff can change. For example, Sonic Colors. Back in the day, people were treating this thing like it was a saving grace to the whole series. And now, People are treating it like it was the second worst thing to happen to Sonic. It started Sonic's worst era. Yes, worse than when Sonic 06 came out. The meta era. This is a time when Sonic games became a lot more simpler, oversaturated with classic Sonic, and ruining the stories to be a lot more cartoonish. I kind of understand the complaint about the stories. I'm the type of guy that gets invested into a game story. It helps you get invested into the world and the characters, seeing their motivations and their flaws, seeing what drives them. But seeing these characters get flanderized, especially during this era, did kind of suck. Especially coming off of some of the best written games in a good while. Now, while we are getting back on track in terms of stuff like this, gameplay and story, a lot of people really think that it's this game that has changed and has ruined the Sonic whatever forever. And the thing about it is that if you still like this game, then you're wrong. No other opinions, because other opinions don't exist, right? We are all a hive mind. Yes, we are a hive mind. The problem with revisionist history is sometimes if you like something that's now considered bad, then you're wrong. And people will throw shade and hate at you just for liking that thing. But if you think that it isn't good, then you're wrong and people will throw shade at you as well. There's no real winning here. And that really shouldn't be the case, because everyone has their preferred way of playing Sonic. If you like Sonic Unleashed, then you like Sonic Unleashed. If you like Sonic Colors, then you like Sonic Colors. If you like the classic games, then you like the classic games. If you like Sonic Mid-Forces, then you like Sonic Mid-Forces. If you like Sonic and the Black Knight, you like Sonic and the Black Knight. There's no real right or wrong way to enjoy this franchise. We all have our personal opinions on things, but that doesn't mean that you should change your opinion based off of other people's opinions. And you really shouldn't harass anyone for having such other opinions. Another thing that you really shouldn't harass people for is talking about quills. Quill? No, you can't say that. People really like talking about Sonic design. And there's nothing really wrong with that, actually. But then there's just the people that get way too heated about this. And this isn't just a Sonic community thing. Other people come in and just start talking oh, why are you caring this much? Dude, he's just looking at character design. What? Oh, my bad for trying to understand, what makes this character kind of work in art. My bad, gang. But then there's also people that just care a little too much. Look, I get it. People have their preferred way of drawing this guy or looking at this guy. But that doesn't mean that you should lynch people over other opinions. In summary, don't be such a bum if you prefer Sonic Rider style over adventure style. Okay? We're all entitled to our own opinion. And for some reason, it feels like that's such a niche here. And you don't need to put people down for liking other things. You don't need to put people down in general. That does include Sega themselves. Now, what am I talking about? Well, this is another issue that goes way back to months. Back when Sonic Galactic released, I know this is the third time I mentioned Sonic Galactic. I know, I'm doing tricks on it. Anyways, when Sonic Galactic released, people were talking about how Sega broke classic Sonic, but fans fixed him. We did it, guys. We, the community, did this. And that's cool that you enjoy the game, but these developers don't want to be put on this pedestal of saying that they're the replacement to Sega. Okay? They're not doing this for the money. They're not doing this for the publicity. They're doing this because they enjoy it. Okay? And this isn't just a Galactic issue. This is a every fan game issue. People are always saying how this is better than anything Sega could ever make. And that's not why they made them. They made them because they enjoy making games. They enjoyed it because they enjoy Sonic. Not because they wanted to be in direct competition with big companies. Okay? I get that you can like something over official, and that's fine, but saying this is a replacement, we found it, guys, that's not really gonna help anyone or anything. People make fan games as a celebration to the franchise, not to replace it. Okay, you might be thinking that there's a distinct lack of a yellow rabbit and a degenerate here, and I was saving that for... Okay, let's get this out of the way. Christian. The fact that people are still talking about this guy is crazy to me. Now, I don't really know exactly all that he did, and I don't even want to know what he did, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this dude. He was pretty infamous for some stuff, like, pretty sure he was, like, doing stuff to his mom, which is already crazy enough. Pretty sure he sprayed someone in the eyes over the Sonic Boom redesign, which is also crazy. He's also the creator of something called Sonic Chew, which I don't even know what this is about. This is some art that is made by people. Also, speaking of art that's made by people, stop drawing children sexualized. Why do people do this? This isn't some, oh, it's just a drawing crap. They are canonically minors. That is real shame on those who actually draw this stuff and like it. And while we're at it, let's talk about that infamous Tales on a Bench comic. Now, shout out to this guy here for, like, actually sitting down and reading this. This is the only way I know about it. But this is, like, actually so nasty, I have to talk about this. I'm not gonna, like, say what happens. Go watch this video if you care enough to traumatize yourself. But this is basically Tails, Cream, and this OC thing, and some actions that I'm not gonna mention because it's pretty nasty. And I don't want to go and check anything. Man, this stuff is so nasty. It gives me the creeps. Like, actually, it doesn't really help that the art's not really stellar. And speaking of creeps, Sonic Omens. This is a fan game that is basically a very mid Sonic X fanfic, and the gameplay isn't really good. The only reason it, like, looks good and, like, controls well enough is because of it being based off of the Infinity engine. But besides that, the level design is awful. The story is pretty mid, all things considered, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Now, I'm sure if you've heard of Sonic Omens before, you might know about this. So, this is Maria, you know. Everyone knows her, especially after her getting No, she didn't get shot. She blew up in the movie. Dang it, I wish she got shot. Anyways, Maria is a fairly well-known character in the Sonic community. A very important character to Shadow's story. And in Sonic Omens, she is a boss fight. They made Maria a boss fight, which is kind of crazy. But if you went into the files, and you looked at her model, you could see that there were textures and files for Maria. And what was on this texture, you may ask? Well, it was underwear with the words "bad girl" written on it. What? Yeah, the 12-year-old has that texture in the files of the game. It is actually this might be worse than the comic. I don't know what's worse. I mean, like, that's so degenerate. Oh my gosh, this is so gross. This isn't even mentioning that the developers tried to monetize the game, which, by the way, you can't monetize fan games. And since that, it could have risked Sega deciding to not support fan games and mods ever again. So this game could have very well stopped the whole creative side of the Sonic fan base. The Sonic community is such a weird fandom. On one hand, it has super creative and cool works that could really put smiles to anyone's faces. And on the other hand, you have Christian in Sonic Omens. The reason I made this video was to show how the Sonic community is so weird, so cool, and so creepy, and so unique at the same time. I really do hope that you are able to appreciate some of the cool stuff that this fandom has done. Okay, it's not all doom and gloom over here with the blue blur. You know, I don't blame you if that's what you see. I mean, come on, we have this guy, okay, and this. So, yeah, that's pretty weird. Okay, if you check, we're kind of wrapping it up. So, I guess I'll just say my piece and dip and not take up more of your time. So, this is something that's been pretty unique compared to everything I've made. So, let me know if you want to see more of this stuff. Thanks, and I'll see you later. Also, check your closet before you go to bed. Bye!
What is that?
Oh, fuck.
Holy crap!
Man's a bad guy?